Kingdom's Court, Die in Minecraft, Kit Kats Into the Unknown, Moon's Fallen series, White Pine, Fable Bullet, Anomaly by Unknown, and My Street, Slum Glow, and The Haunting. That is the list. If you were wondering, that is the... If you don't care about anything else, I just saved you some time. That is the list. Alright? Period. Done. Okay? Of course, I have honorable mentions for those who want to know about those as well. Those being Vampire's Curse, Otso and Derpy, and SCP by Invisible Davis. Alright? Those are the honorable mentions. The former was the list. Alright? Those are the top 10, period. Cool. You still here? Great. Okay. So, let's talk a little bit more about what this list is, what it means, what it's saying, and what it's, more importantly, not saying. I'm not saying that any other roleplays that didn't make this list are not good. They simply either did not meet a certain criteria, or I personally felt as though the roleplays on this list was a better spread. Alright, now the roleplays on this list, I've tried to have a pretty wide spread all across the board. Alright, some are kind of more horror themed, some are more action, some are sci-fi, etc. Alright, I feel like this, gives a good diversity in the list. And of course, I'm not saying that these are objectively better than one another. This is just how I personally felt to put them on a list. Do not give any hate or animosity towards anyone on this list, because, hey, they made the list. And anyone who didn't make the list, sorry, there's a good chance I just didn't see your roleplay, so, yeah. With that out of the way, let's get into a little bit more depth on each one of these. Starting off with number 1, Kingdom's Court. Now, number 1 was a kind of hard one to fill on the list. Not because I didn't know who I was going to put in the number 1 slot, but because they made so many great roleplays. It was hard to decide which one earned the number 1 spot. I mean, you have Kingdom's Court, you have Dismissed, you have Mitty's Manor, you have the original Kingdom's Court, you have the original Dismissed. There are so many good roleplays that if I allowed more than one person per roleplay, it would just be 5 of his and then 5 of other people's. They are phenomenal. Ultimately, I decided on Kingdom's Court for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I feel as though the Kingdom's Court remake, which is what I'm talking about, best illustrates how to do a proper Minecraft roleplay. It does not use an over amount of animation. Not, in-engine animation, but I mean animation. It doesn't use a third-party software. It feels natural. I don't think there's a single episode in the series that I personally felt was a beach episode, and I like that. I don't really like beach episodes. Ultimately, I thought that it was a very, very good roleplay, and I'd highly suggest it. I'm not really going to spoil it or anything, but all I'm going to say is, it has some of my favorite characters, and the ending is phenomenal for Season 1. And, there's only been a few episodes out of Season 2, but I am super excited to see how Season 2 plays out. It's really a series that every time an episode is released, I drop whatever I'm doing and watch it. Bravo and good work. Number 2, Die in Minecraft. This, unfortunately to say, is the most underrated series on this list, in my opinion. The amount of work that goes into each installment of Die in Minecraft is absolutely phenomenal and mind-boggling, all to create some very funny bits and skits. Ultimately, this roleplay doesn't have an overarching story, or not really, but each episode is more a contained amount of skits of people doing things to get themselves killed in Minecraft. I think the series is great. Alright, the guy who makes it obviously puts so much passion into each episode, and it really comes through on screen. Ultimately, this is someone that I would have no challenge at all to sell to anyone. I really think out of all the Minecraft roleplays on this entire list, that this one would actually have the best case, or not necessarily best case, but best chance to transition from Minecraft to completely other games and do phenomenally. I would love to see a take on that in, I don't know, Arma 3 or some other game. It is phenomenal. He puts a lot of hard work, and honestly, bravo. I really mean it, bravo. Because it is, I cannot understate how much work it must take him to do these things. I know World Edit is involved, but oh my gosh, I don't think I could do it in a million years. I don't think I could figure it out. Amazing work, and a very well-deserved number 2 spot on this list. Number 3, Kit Kat Galaxies Into the Unknown. Kit Kat Galaxies Into the Unknown is a very, very good series. Admittedly, I've not watched it in a while, which is probably why it stands where it stands on the list. However, it is great. And if you have a few hours to spare, or your favorite show has just ended, I would say that this would be a great substitute. It's more of a sci-fi young adult series. However, I don't think it goes too far in most cases. There are certain scenes and certain points where I feel like it tiptoes a little bit into the cringe, but ultimately, I feel as though it's very good. I could see this being just a regular animated series or a live-action series. And I think the melding of a post-apocalyptic wasteland with more sci-fi and even fantasy elements goes really well together. I mean, you really wouldn't think that all those genres would meld as well as they do, but they do. And it's almost seamless. I mean, I had no trouble getting hooked and engaged and enthralled with the story. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't really want to give too much away, but, it takes place in kind of a post-apocalyptic wasteland that's, I would actually argue, not even post-apocalyptic, but post-apocalyptic to a certain extent. And you get to kind of see why the things in the world are happening the way they are. It's really fun, really good. Highly recommend. Moon's Fallen series. Now, this one is still an ongoing series, which is partially why I put it as high as I did on the list. It is great. Alright, there's no getting around it. It is fun. It is a fun series with an engaging mystery behind it. Maybe not as crime-centric or as almost Pulp Fiction-y as maybe some other mystery stories, but still a very good mystery that I can get behind. I think the characters have great chemistry, and, barring a couple of scenes that, border on cringy, I think ultimately they do a very, very good job at staying far, far away from that line. Only a couple scenes do I even think they really tiptoed it. Again, the characters are unique, and the world they live in is enthralling. It is a series that almost feels like reading a novel or a book. It's very reminiscent of travel logs. It's them going from point to point to point to point, but it doesn't ever feel like it's repeating itself. It feels like each new location they visit, even if it's the same location within a town multiple times, each time they visit it, it doesn't feel the same. It never feels like they're repeating themselves or walking in circles, and that is something I can respect. It really makes you feel like they have a lot of care for the viewer's experience and their time. I would highly recommend it. Also, most of the episodes have been edited together in just long movies, so you can watch them from beginning to end without having to have the replay buffer and click on the next video. I really like it. Very good series. Would recommend. Number 5, White Pine. White Pine, going back to, Moon's Fallen series, is more of a classic mystery story. The person behind it has obviously put a lot of work and effort into it. During the entire thing, you can almost get a sense for the exact time period and era it's set in. She does a phenomenal job of illustrating every little detail for kind of the era and setting she wants it to be. It's a very good murder mystery story, and I think has some of the best, visuals out there. It's not too heavy on the shaders, which I enjoy, and it has a very good and interesting mystery behind it. The characters are pretty good as well. The one downside, and the one thing that kind of takes me out of the immersion just a little bit, is the skin choices. A lot of the skins of the background characters feel like people's personal Minecraft skins. It isn't necessarily a problem, but it does make it feel a little bit... It does take you out of the immersion a little bit. That being said, though, at the end of the day, for the amount of work it's obviously taken to put into this, especially to write such a good, enthralling mystery, it's definitely worth a watch. It's worth a watch just, if not for anything, if you don't care about roleplays, it's worth a watch just to see the technical ability on display for, things like the Create mod. It's a pretty good series, all things considered. And I am happily awaiting the next installment as it's still going. Number 6, Fabled Bullet. Fabled Bullet is a very good action roleplay. It has about everything I would want for some action, with a little twist of mystery. I like the characters. I think that they are funny, and they are fun and have pretty good chemistry. As opposed to a lot of the other roleplays, however, the progression feels more like an anime than a roleplay. And you can see that there's a lot of influences, or I think there's a lot of influences there. Not to tiptoe too heavily into the spoiler territory, but it's essentially about a kid who manufactures probably the first gun in his world, and his journey becoming kind of a guard and protector of a princess. It's not overly campy, and it doesn't, fall into many of the pitfalls other roleplays have of the same sort of style. It's really good. And, even the newest episode of, Fable Bullet, it's another series that whenever an episode releases, I drop what I'm doing and go and watch it. The only reason why it's as low on the list as it is simply because there's so few episodes, it's hard to convince someone to watch. But at the same time, it's a very good series. The quality jumps a lot in it, to be fair, and that is another detracting thing about it. If you watch the first episode and the newest episode, you can see that there is a huge technological jump in quality. But that isn't a bad thing, because it shows that they're still improving their craft. And that's something I can respect. Ultimately, I would suggest this roleplay to almost anyone who's interested in roleplays. Number 7, Anomaly by Unknown End. This is a series that is so far down the list for a couple of reasons. Number 1, there's a very few amount of episodes. And number 2, the last episode came out a year ago. This is a series that it would not shock me if never gets another installment. That being said, though, I have to say, the installments that we do have of the series makes me crave more. A running theme with a lot of the roleplays I've suggested is mystery. And a lot of them have captivating mysteries. This one has a captivating mystery that I don't even know if it's that intentional. But it's the mystery of a personality of a character, the main character. Why they act the way they do. It's interesting and intriguing, and it makes you feel like there's more here than meets the eye. Where other role plays make you feel like there's a mystery to solve, all the other ones feel like the mystery itself is part of the story. This one makes it feel like it is the story. Like, it isn't viewing a mystery through the eyes of the characters in a world, but it's the world itself is the mystery. I enjoy it. It's, about a high school student who, kind of acts differently, and his involvement with several other characters, including a photography club where he makes a friend, and, a few other places I'm not going to spoil. But it's good. It's very good. And I feel like it's right where it needs to be on this list. Alright, is it any shocker what number 8 is? Come on, we can all say it together. You've been waiting this whole video to hear it. It's My Street. Alright, it's My Street. Of course it's going to be My Street. Yeah, I don't really have too much to say on My Street. It's a good series. There's a lot of episodes to catch up on. Good character dynamics, great voice actors, and a good story. It was really a toss-up between this and Minecraft Diaries. If you've watched one but not the other, I'd suggest giving both a fair shot. It's a good series, but ultimately it's a series that is so popular and so talked about. I feel as though if you're looking up a video about the top 10 Minecraft roleplays, you've probably already watched this one. That's why it's as low on the list. Also, just there hasn't been much talked about it. It's kind of the last roleplay she realistically ever did. It's alright, it's good. A lot of funny moments. And, there's a lot of mystery. And, I feel like you could make it almost a conspiracy theory channel just about AFMAO. But, at the end of the day, none of those conspiracies are really going to go anywhere because, don't really make Minecraft roleplays anymore. I wouldn't be lying if I said I'm kind of bitter about it, but you know what? It's not my decision. It's completely within her rights to do that, and I'm not going to give her any hate or animosity because of it. Sunglow by Ursa. I've not watched this series in a very long time, but I have to say I think about it a lot. The characters are phenomenal. Alright, they have some very funny moments, and it is just a really good laugh. It almost feels like an alternative path down the AFMAO channel legacy. She made a series kind of similar in concept to it. I forget the name of, but it feels almost like a alternate timeline. Very funny, very good series. Really liked the characters. And, of course it had a little bit of mystery, but I mainly watched it for the comedy and for the characters. She's making roleplays to this day, and she has some very, pretty good, very good, FNAF, roleplays. But, I personally have a little bit of distaste for that sort of thing, but from what I've seen, which is the entire first season now that I think about it, it's good, and I really like the characters. I think it's just, everything she makes is just very good, character-oriented. The overarching stories, I feel, almost take a backseat, but they're still very good as well. Ultimately, this is another series that, if someone was interested in roleplays and want to see what they're about, I would suggest it to them. It's pretty good. If you haven't seen it, I'd suggest watching it, if nothing else than for the humor and for the novelty of it. It's pretty good. Alright, so this is going to be an odd one to put at number 10. Haunting, or The Haunting, by Rejected Shotgun. Or I believe it's Rejected Shotgun. I don't actually have the name in front of me. This one is going to be a little bit longer than all the other things, and it's because I have a lot to say on the series. This is a series I really debated putting on the list, but I did. For a simple fact, it is the roleplay everyone forgets, but it seems like a lot of people have seen. How did I come to this conclusion? Well, it's simple. I went on Reddit, unfortunately, and I've seen so many tip-of-your-tongue posts about Minecraft roleplays, and most of the time, they're talking about The Haunting. It is eerie how many people remember the series, but can't put the name to the face. It is a very good early Minecraft roleplay. It is so good as an early Minecraft roleplay to the point where if it was remade today in Blockbuster Studio, I think it would be number one on this. Flat out. But it wasn't made today. And it wasn't made in Blockbuster Studio. So I have to dock it some points. And there's a pretty big jump in quality. And it doesn't really end at a... Or, to me personally, I don't feel like the ending really hit the mark. But, oh my gosh. It's... Okay, so to talk about the story a little bit. It's supposed to be more horror-themed. And it's supposed to be, two guys, in this house, and there's Herobrine. And that sounds cringy, and it is. For the first few episodes. But it becomes this odd sort of curiosity. It's good. And not just in a, it's bad good or cringy good. No, it's good. And it gets there in a really weird way because you don't ever feel like it's good. The entire time I watched the full series, I kept thinking to myself, oh man, I'd rather be doing something else. Oh, this is boring, this is bad. It's only much later on, and I'm talking months, man, that it hit me, that it was good. And it felt weird. It felt eerie. It felt almost like an earworm of a song. You know those songs that you'll get stuck in your head and you can't remember what the name is, but you'll remember like a specific lyric of? It felt like that to me. Now, maybe I'm alone, all right? Maybe it's just me. Or maybe it's the same feeling all those Redditors had when I first found the series. Now, quickly, I wanted to go through 3 honorable mentions. These didn't really make the list, either because I felt like there was a roleplay that I wanted to put on the list more, or something else. That's one of these actually got taken off because of The Haunting, and that's the first one here, Vampire's Curse by Kagano. Have you seen Tokyo Ghoul? Well, you've seen Vampire's Curse without even knowing it. Except you haven't, because he does a spin on the story that I really like. The story hits roughly the same beats, and it's very reminiscent of it, but I really enjoy the story. It feels nice, and the ending of it especially kind of feels like a truck hitting you in the chest, because you feel bad. He does a good job of getting you attached to the characters. And I like that. Number 2, Derpy and Otso. Now, the next 2 roleplays on here, I didn't add to the list because ultimately I felt as though it would be breaking one of the rules I set, which was from only one creator. It's kind of complicated to say, but effectively, Derpy and Otso follows 2, I guess you would say, trans-dimensional beings in shenanigans, along with a whole bunch of side characters that sometimes get full episodes. You know how I said I didn't really like the beach episodes? The whole thing is kind of a beach episode, but in a way I like. Ultimately, if it was a different number, I'd probably put it on here if it weren't for number 2. And that is SCP by Invisible Davis. Now, Invisible Davis, and he and I'm drawing a blank to the name, but the woman who made Derpy Notso are in almost all their videos. Like they share making roleplays. And it's a thing where if there wasn't so many other good roleplays, I'd have no problem with putting both of them on the same list. But it's one of those, both of them, their quality levels are almost identical. Their story quality, almost identical. I think, maybe character writing, a little bit more skewed one way. But ultimately, I think both make very good content. Now, it's a lot of this more filler type of content, which I don't personally like. But it's good, and it's a consistent amount of uploads. Both of them have done very good jobs, and I have no problem with either one of them. Again, if this list was longer, or if there were fewer good roleplays, I would have no issue putting both of them on the list. It's simply because they are both in a lot of each other's content that it almost makes it feel like they're second channels for each other. So, yeah. So you've made it here to the end of the video. This is a message to everyone who was on this list and everyone who wasn't on this list. I have not watched every single Minecraft roleplay, unfortunately. But I've watched a lot. And, if you feel like your content deserved to be on the list, it very well could have. And I might make another one of these lists in the future that will have different videos on it. If I do make a sequel video to this, it will not have any of these same roleplays on it. Now, it may have some of the same people on it. Looking at you, Citrus was here. But, at the end of the day, this is all more or less for consumers. It really isn't meant to say who's better or who's worse. And I don't want anyone's egos or anything to get hurt over this. It's simply for the consumer. That's why I counted down from 1 and not up from 10, is because I didn't make this with the intention of wanting people to watch through the whole thing. And if you are watching through the whole thing, thank you, but why? This whole video was really meant for people who are struggling to find a good Minecraft roleplay. Here are 10 of them for you. Ultimately, I had a good time making this list. And all the roleplays on here, even the honorable mentions, are phenomenal. And of course, I would suggest checking them out. And there are so many other roleplays that didn't make the list for other reasons, or I forgot about them. And I'm sure whenever I'm editing this, I'll think, oh man, I should have done this and this and this. And you know what? I'm going to start making a list for a sequel. So, if your roleplay isn't in this list, don't feel bad. It will probably be in the next. And again, this isn't really to say who's best and who's worst. It's simply here for consumers. So, thank you all so much for watching this video. Especially here to the end. If you did enjoy this video, do not like it. Do not comment. Do not subscribe.